Hello and welcome back to 100 Days of Code with Lilly Code. Today's day 97 and yesterday we set up all of our functionality on our GitHub Finder here. Well, we set up our search and clear functionality. So if we search for a new user here, this is hitting the GitHub API. We get back our list of any GitHub users with the name Lilly in it, and then we can clear the list as well. So the way this is working is we have our GitHub context, which is doing our fetch from our backend, from our GitHub API, which in this case is the backend, it's not our backend. We're hitting the GitHub API here with this fetch statement. And then what it's doing is it's dispatching the type action, the dispatch action of get users. So this all hooks up to our reducer. And once we send through an action, we run one of these different actions, and then that updates the state, and any component that's using the reducer there, that this reducer is being provided to, then we get the action updating. So super duper. So let's keep going here now and continue on with what we were doing, but that's where we got to yesterday. So now we want an alert, and we're going to use multiple contexts here. So we're going to create an alert context just to show how you can have multiple contexts. So in here in our context folder, we're going to create a new folder called alert, and this will house, well, that didn't work very well. So what have I done? Okay, I really don't know what I just did there. Why is everything grey? So in our context, new folder, alert. Okay, so I don't know. There we go. We're back to full colour. And we want to create a file called our alert context.jsx. So cool. And now we need to import create context. From React, and also use reducer we want, so we'll bring that in too. And then we'll also create an alert reducer, so let's do that. So we'll create an alert reducer. So we'll bring in our alert reducer now as well into our alert context. So we'll import alert reducer, and that's going to be from one level up. And now I'll create my context. So I'll say const alert context is equal to create context. And then I also just want to export this. So I'll export const alert context provider. This is our provider we're exporting. And we want to take in the children here. So children. And this will be an arrow function. And so in here now we'll have an initial state. And initially we'll just set this to null, and then we'll also have const some state management here for our use reducer, so state and dispatch, and this will be equal to use reducer. And it takes in two things, so we want our alert reducer and then the initial state as well. Cool. And then what we want to return from here is our alert context provider. So it should be like this. So it's the component now that we are returning out. So our alert provider context, so it needs to go into these angled brackets. So alert context dot provider. And then we're going to have value is equal to, and declare another object in here and pass through the values that we want to be provided to the other components. So I'll also just close this off. Yep. And in here we'll pass through our children that we are getting from the props. So perfect. So I'm just going to pass in the entire state in here. So I'll say alert and just pass the state as what we want to pass through. And then we'll export default alert context. So now we need to wrap our whole app.js in this provider, because that's how you use them. So we don't have to import it because it'll automatically import. So that's okay. So I'll just put it in here, alert provider, and close it at the bottom. And tab everything in. So perfect, save. Cool. So now in our context we can create the functions that we're going to actually use, that we're going to provide. So in our alert provider, or in our alert context file I should say, we're going to create a function in here. So we'll say set an alert, and this will be const set alert. We'll take in a message and a type, and this will be an arrow function. And then in here what we want to do is dispatch an action. So the action that we'll dispatch in this case is to set the alert. So we'll say type is set alert. This goes into our parentheses here. So set, or our quotes, set alert, and then we'll give it the payload of alert. Now the payload should be message and type. And then I'll also set a timeout here. And timeout is going to run an arrow function, and what this is going to do is remove the alert after a specific time. So then we'll run our remove alert dispatch, which we need to create as well. So perfect. And yes, so here I should say actually that I want to dispatch this type, because that's what we're doing. We can't just say type dot dot. So we're dispatching, then we pass in the type remove alert, and then we want to set the time in which we want to remove this alert. Should be a regular parentheses. Sorry, getting confused here with my parentheses. This should be a yes, okay, and then the time. So we'll say 3000. So that's 3 seconds. And then So it looks like something is still off with my parentheses there, so I'm just going to type this out again because my brain isn't catching it right now. Let's just see. Okay. So then we want to dispatch type remove underscore alert and then pass the time, right? So I did just have an incorrect parenthesis and I know where it was now. I had one around here, so cool. So great, so now we have a dispatch function that's going to run after a set time, which is 3 seconds, and that will remove the alert that we've set by the previous dispatch, which was to set the alert. So we'll see all them in action now. So now in our alert reducer we can build this out. So we'll say const alert reducer, which takes in a state and an action. And in here I'll have a switch statement, which will take action.type. And then I want a case for set alert. And what I want to do in this case is return action.payload, which will just be the message and the whole payload coming in. And then we need another case of remove alert, and this will just return null. And then we just also want a default case, and this will just return state. So then we'll have case, well, you don't need to write case, you just write default, and then this will be return state. So do nothing, basically, just return the state we already had. So great. And then what we want to do is just export this, our alert reducer, so we can use it. So we'll default, export default, alert reducer. Cool. And now we can use this. Great. So now in our alert context, we should be able to pass through these functions that we've run. So we want to be able to run set alert. Perfect, which is this function here. So now this can be used anywhere in our application because we've wrapped our alert context provider around our whole app. So this is being provided to the whole application. Perfect. Perfect. So at the moment we get the alert that says please enter something, yeah, because we've left it blank, but we'll update this to have an alert with a message. So where we're going to want to fire this is in our user search component. So we'll open up our user search. So I want to bring in my alert context. So I'll just wait until I use it and then it'll automatically get imported for me. So now we can do the same thing with what we did for the GitHub context and pull out what we need. So we'll say const alert context, set alert is what we want to pull out in this case, our function to run. And this will be equal to our use context. And the context that we're using is our alert context here. That's where we're getting it from. So great, and that's done the automatic import for us. And it even put it in alphabetical order, which I wouldn't have done, so that's good. So now when we handle change, we can try and do something. So rather than just alerting, we can actually call our alert context that we've created. So we'll say set alert. And it needs a message and then a type as well. So we'll say type error. Let's see. So let's just open up our dev tools. If we go to our components here, so let's go to our components here. And here is our alert provider. So great, we have it there. And there we go. If we hit go, we do get our message coming through and it goes away after 3 seconds. So great. We can see that functionality working there. I'll just zoom in here to show you a little bit better. So here we have our alert provider in our tree here of components. And then if I hit go, we can see our reducer, the message change that changes then to please enter something and with the type of error. So we can do something with that now, which is great. So now what I'll do is create an alert component to actually tie all this together. So we'll create alert .jsx, and this should really probably go into, should it go into one of our folders here? Well, we have layout, users. I'm just going to put it in the root folder because I don't really see a folder that's good for this. So alert, we could create a folder, but I'll just create it here. So alert context, once you reference it, fine, that's fine. So this is going to just be our alert.jsx. Yeah, and this is a component, so we'll start it off with RFCE and tab to get our basic component. And I'll just add in alert in here so we can see it. And then we'll bring this into our app.js and we will display it. So I'll put it within the main tag here. I'll just say alert and save, and let's see if that's coming up on our page there. Alert is not defined. Did it not import? No. So we'll just import it as well. So I'll do it in alphabetical order. So import alert. There we go. And now if we save, we have that word alert there. So perfect. And let me just zoom in again. Perfect. So there we go. We can see that that component is getting injected into the page, and now we need to hook it up with our reducer functions, well, with our provider, so that we're actually using that state that's being captured in the alert provider somewhere. So we'll come back to our alert.jsx here. So So I will import use context. From React. So I put user context here, that should just be use context. And then we'll actually use it within our component. So I'll say const, and what we want is our alert state. So we'll grab that, and then we will use context, and we want to use our alert context. And it automatically imported for us, so great. So we'll just add some logic here now. So we want to check if we don't have an alert. So if the alert, well, we can just do a return instead. So return alert is not equal to null. Then we want to return. Then we want to return a paragraph, so we'll just say p dot and add our classes. So our classes are flex, items, start, mb4, so margin bottom 4, and just doing these dots, this is emmet, very useful, and space dash x dash 2. So if we have an error alert, we want to show an SVG. So just put alert dot type in here. So if alert dot type is equal to error, then show an SVG. So I'm going to get the SVG from the repository and paste it in here. So we'll do that now. So we'll just go to Brad's GitHub repository again. So Brad Traversy, here we go. Repositories, GitHub feedback app, GitHub Finder app, sorry. Made a cup of tea, and this cup is so amazing. Like, it's so warm. Like, it just hasn't cooled down. Now it has a little bit. But wow, it keeps it warm for so long. And I'll keep that over there. So, okay, so now we're in our source. Well, we should go to our commits actually. So our commits here. We'll go set alerts. Cool. So we want that alert SVG is what we're grabbing. Here we go. So we'll grab this, we'll grab it, and we will stick it in here. Great, and save. And now let's see what that's going to look like. But we'll just finish this off first. So we'll say if we don't have an error type, we'll say paragraph, the flex 1, text base, font semi-bold, leading 7, and text of white. So let's hit tab, cool. And in here we just want to show in capital letters alert.message. And save, and let's see how that all works. Okay, great. So look, if we don't have anything, we get this little SVG, which goes away after 3 seconds. And then, sorry for slurping. And then if we do have something, so we say, hi. We get our SVG as well for its loading. So, okay, great. So just watching the video for a moment. Cool. So I'm just listening to the video. So now we're going to add in the profiles, because at the moment when we click visit profile we get this oops 404 page not found. So now we're going to do a fetch to get a single user. So great. So this is going to be its own page. So we'll add a user component here. So in our pages, we'll add a new file and we'll call this user.jsx. And as always, we'll just start it off with RFCE. The underscore just stops us needing the, well, it doesn't work. So let's try RFCE. Hit enter. Yeah, so the underscore should stop us needing this first import statement, because you don't need that anymore in React. You can include it, but it's not necessary. But it didn't autofill, so I'll just keep going. So in our user item component here, yes, we are linking out to an individual user. When we go to an individual user, we just need to actually set up this fetch request so that it knows to go and get it, as well as just routing there. So I'll come into our app.js. And we'll just add another route here. So I'll duplicate this. And this is going to be user that we're going to be loading. Yep. And user. So we need /user, but then we also need the rest, so their login details need to be passed too. So now we should be able to see our user component. So let's go, let's search for someone. Okay, so we're coming here, so okay, cool. And then in our user item, we are saying that when we link, we go to user/login. So let's just check our, well, we didn't make any network requests yet, so let's just continue. We didn't actually make any network requests. So, but nonetheless, let's just have a little go and see if anything is happening in here. So no, so if I go back to home and visit profile, cool, yeah, all we're loading on this page so far is just this fav icon again, because we haven't actually done the request to the backend. So great. So in our context, we're going to need a function that makes that request for us. and we have to call an action in the reducer from that function to get the state. So we'll go to our GitHub context, and in here we'll just add user to our initial state, and that will just be one object. Cool. And then I also want to add it down to the exported values. So in here, we also need user. And this will be state.user. So I'll just copy the search users and edit it. So this is going to get a single user. And then this will be get user. And I'm going to pass in the username or the login. Set loading, yeah, that sets loading to true. We don't need any parameters because we're not performing a search query. And then our search query is going to be users/login, and we need to pass in that login value, so we use our $sign and our curly parentheses and pass in the login like that, and then that evaluates to the login that was passed in. So I'll just as well make sure that we have a user, and if not, then show the 404 page. So we'll say if response dot status is equal to 404, then redirect. So we'll say window dot location is equal to not found. And then in the else is where we want to get the data. So if we don't have anything, show a 404. Otherwise, get our data and dispatch our function. So rather than having this be items, we'll just set this to our data that's coming back. And we will dispatch the action called get user, and our payload is going to be data, which is just our one user that's come back from the GitHub API. So now we need to create our get user dispatch action. So if we go into our GitHub reducer, we can create this. So I'll put it underneath get users, seems like a good place for me. So case get user, and then in this case we'll return our state, and then our user will be set to action.payload, and we still want to set loading to false as well, so loading will be false. Cool. So now I need to call this get user. And it also needs to be added to our value if we want to use it. So down here, yes, we need to add it. So we'll also say get user. So now in our user.jsx we can use this. So it was in pages. So we need to import a few things here. First of all, we want to import use effect and use context. And then we will use it down below here. So we'll say const get user and also the user. We need the function and the user itself, and this is going to be equal to our use context, and the context is the GitHub context. And then we'll add a use effect here, which takes in our arrow function here, and also an empty array that we just want this to run on initial page load. So in here we want to get user. And we need to pass in the login name as well. So because we have this in our app.js and we've called it login here, we can get this in React with a prop call match. So we will do that in our user here. So we need to import that, or not, just pass it in, sorry. So we'll pass that in, match. Oh, match doesn't work for React version 6. Also, we use params. Yes, I remember use params. So it's not actually match we use anymore because we're using React router DOM version 6. It's use params. So we need to import use params to tell it that we want to use these parameters, and it's coming from React router DOM. And then, yes, underneath our GitHub context here, we'll create a parameter called params. And this will be equal to use params. So in here, we want to get user and pass in our params.login. And we also want to get user repos, which we're going to create. So get user repos. And again, we need to pass in our params.login here. So cool. So just listening here. So let's just return user.login just to see what's going on there. So we'll say user.login. Oh, well, we still have our defined function that we haven't actually defined yet. We've just named it, but we haven't used it, so we need to do that. So in our user.jsx, yet where we currently are, we'll import React icons. So we want to import a few icons here, so we'll import FA code pen, FA store, FA user friends, and FA users from React icons. From React icons /FA, because it's still coming from Font Awesome. And so we'll also import link. We don't need link in here, do we? Yeah, we need link, so import link You'll see this coming together now in a moment. So link from React Router DOM. And also our spinner, we want our spinner, so we'll import spinner from components layout spinner. Perfect. So we also want loading from our get user and user. Now we're going to add the spinner if we don't have the user yet. So we will add an if statement underneath our use effect here, and we'll say if loading, then return our spinner. Cool. And then everything we need is contained in our user object. So we'll just deconstruct that and see everything. So this is what we need. So we need a big long definition here. So const, and this is going to be an object, and we have name, type, avatar, URL. This would even be nice in a separate file, but for now it's here. Avatar URL just to see it, location, bio, blog. So these are all the different things that we're getting from this user, or from any user, Twitter username, and that we've requested as well. So login, when we did our fetch request from the GitHub API, HTML, URL, followers, following, public repos, and hireable, whether or not they are hireable. And this will be equal to our user. So this is all the things we're deconstructing from our user. So now in the return, we can use this. So we'll have a div of a width of full, MX auto, margin auto, large width 10/12, just do 10. Cool. And then /12. It's because the Emmet wouldn't have done that for us, it might have got confused. So we'll have MB4, margin bottom 4, and then we want a link that's just going to / for the moment, and then class name of button ghost, and in here we'll say back to search. So we'll just close this and say back to search. Cool. And I'm just going to commit everything where I'm at the moment, because we've had a lot of changes and it's just good to keep track of it. I know I even have an error. I should wait until I've finished what I'm doing and define this get user props, but just I'd prefer to know where I'm at right now. So let's git add everything, and then we'll do git commit message of 62 and 342. So this is just where I'm at in the course, and then I'll just do git push, because good to have that logged that this is where we've got to right now, because yeah, I haven't committed in a while. So now outside of this MB4 we'll have another area, so grid dash calls, calls 1, and then we want on Excel grid called 3, and then on large grid called 3, and on medium grid called 3. We'll say margin bottom of 8, and on medium a gap of 8. So perfect. It's a lot of classes, but it is what it is. I prefer just writing the CSS, but so we want more. We have custom card image, margin bottom 6, and on medium we'll do margin bottom 0. Then we want rounded, LG, shadow, dash XL, card, image full. And then in here we want a figure tag, so figure with an image, and we want source equal to avatar URL with the alt text of avatar, user avatar. And after this figure we'll have another div, so we're just displaying all the information from our users now, and at the moment we're just setting up our page, setting up the padding, setting up the styles so that it looks halfway decent when we put in all of this information that we've deconstructed from our object. So we can see here now at the moment all we've used is the avatar URL, and that's why that bit isn't in the lighter purple blue colour, because we have used it. So we'll be using all of these and displaying the user profile and displaying all this information about the user. So then we'll have H2 card title and margin bottom of 0. Cool. Okay, so in here now in the H2 we're just going to add our name, show our name here. So then the name prop will be used, and we also want to add a paragraph with the login prop. So great, and if I scroll up now here you'll see login name and avatar URL are being used. And we just need to add a bit more CSS. So we'll go to our index CSS and I'll just put custom card image and also card dot image full, and add the border radius to 0.5 rem and the opacity to 0.45. Cool, so now underneath the card, so we are back here, yeah. And underneath our card image, which is here, we want to add some more classes. So we'll add call span2 and another class in here of mb6, and we'll have a h1 so we need the h1 before the dot here, so h1, and then the classes we want to apply to this h1 are text 3xl, which will just make the text big, and card title. Cool. And then we want to display the name again in here. And ml2, another class, and margin right 1, badge, and badge dash success. And then in here we'll show the type, and then we'll add the hireable. So hireable, so if the person is hireable, because this is a boolean, then we want to show the div with a class of mx1 badge dash info. Cool. So if that's true, we'll just put the tag hireable. Cool. So then underneath the h1 we want to add a few more. So we'll have a paragraph with the bio, so we don't need a class on this for the moment, and we'll just say bio. And then we want a button to view the GitHub profile, so we'll put this in a div with mt4 card dash action and an a tag, with a href. Oh, I'm crazy there. So in the href we're going to add the HTML URL. So HTML underscore URL, yep. Target of blank underscore blank, and rel no ref. No refer. So then within here we want to display visit GitHub profile, so this is going to be a link, and I'll add some classes to this link as well. So I'll add class name of btn btn dash ghost. Just making sure that he is going to say ghost. No, outline. He put outline. Cool. Okay, so considering this is just like copying a load of classes that are so boring, I'm going to copy the rest of this file because this is boring for me. So, and probably for you as well. We're just using all these inbuilt classes, and you know, I don't really think we're learning much right now, so I'm going to just copy get and display user repos. So get a single user. I think this is where we should have all those changes to that file. Okay, so no, that was just setting up our context and stuff. So then get and display user repos, where here we go. So I'm going to just copy this return statement. We were nearly finished. We only have a few bits left to do, but nonetheless, this part isn't really too constructive. So I'm going to just copy this and paste it in here. Okay. So now we're using those FA icons, the icons that we pulled in. We've just added our description, stargazers count, open issues. So let's just have a look and see what we're using up here. So we're not using as much. Okay, maybe I should just continue because it looks like we were using a lot of other things here that now we're not using anymore. So this is our repo item. Okay, so this is our repo list, GitHub context. Here we go. So this is the one, hireable get. Okay, so yeah, it still does go on for ages. So yeah, just typing all this out doesn't feel useful. So I'm going to copy this and paste that in. So this is from our user.jsx, and this is the return statement. So we're just using all these Tailwind CSS classes that I'm not even that familiar with. So you just give the class name and then it applies classes, but not being able to properly explain what we're doing, it just seems a little bit meh. So I will paste this part in, and at least we have that bit done then. So, and we're bringing in different components here. So okay, we're going to have to create these components. So we're going to get a few errors, but that's okay for the time being. So we'll continue with this now tomorrow, and we'll create all of our different components for within here, which that'll be a bit more exciting. So great, guys, cool. Okay, and we have our links, we have all of our different classes. So okay, location, GitHub profile, there's the A tag we had, hireable, the name, the login, the avatar URL. So okay, great, we're getting somewhere, and we've used everything in here except hireable because I spelt it wrong, so that was a good spot. Yeah, and save, cool, because we would have gotten an error about that, but then we could have just fixed it when we got the error. But anyway, that's super duper, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, Lily Code, on another episode of 100 Days of Code. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. Please do like and subscribe, and thanks so much. Just have a great day for yourselves, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye, guys.